It was more than 25 years ago when I first met Rickson Gracie. I walked into a room where he was teaching and he was wrestling with a bunch of large men, including a bunch of big judo black belts. And I realized as I was watching him that he was submitting them, tapping all of them out without using his hands. And when he got to the end of the line and he looked at me, he said, "For you, my big friend, I will use one hand." And he took his hand out and then he tapped me out, and he didn't need the hand. But it was that day that I realized I'd found what I was looking for. You know, a lot of martial arts like Aikido and Silat and a lot of the mythology even within the JKD concepts world, which I was teaching at the time, talk about being able to defeat larger opponents or using their force against them or all these different conceptual ideas, but they can't actually make it work. They pretend to make it work, and it's in the act of pretending that they actually fail to put themselves on the path where they'll ever be able to actually do it. Rickson could do it. And so when I met Rickson and I saw what he was doing and I saw his art, I knew I'd found what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And a lot of what we use in SBG, from our terminology to our concepts, things like the I method, which is introduce, isolate, integrate, is a way to explain Rickson's form of drilling, which is to take a piece of jiu-jitsu, take it out of the hole, isolate it with timing, and the timing is essential because absent a resisting opponent, there is no timing, which is something Rickson talked a lot about, and then you put it back into the makes. And that necessity of a resisting opponent in order to have timing is part of what helped me flesh out the concept of aliveness, which, if I was going to give one source for my idea of aliveness, more credence than any other, it would be Rickson Gracie. I received my blue belt from him then, many years ago, many decades ago, and I received my purple, brown, and black from my coach, Chris Howder, after that. And it's interesting to note that Chris also got his start with Rickson Gracie when they were all in the garage back in the day in Southern California. And both Chris and I have maintained a jiu-jitsu and an ideal of jiu-jitsu which is based on fighting. So our students will compete in tournaments, they'll compete with gi and they'll compete with no gi, but at the core, what I always teach and what I always emphasize is Brazilian jiu-jitsu for fighting. And that too came from Rickson. So now as I look back on it 25 years later, I've been able to do this for a living and raise my family and support them. I've been able to travel all over the world to some very obscure places I would otherwise have never visited. We have now more than 100 affiliated gyms and academies in our organization all over the world. And we're on every continent with the exception of Antarctica. Our athletes are some of the most accomplished and highest paid in the world. And much of it started 25 years ago, that day when I walked in and first met Rickson Gracie. So when I think back on it, and I think back on the 2.5 decades, I'm left with a profound sense of gratitude for his teaching and for his art, and for his attempt to explain it to me and the rest of the world in a way that I think is quite profound. I have nothing to say to him other than thank you, a deep, heartfelt thank you for that. And as such, it was a great honor for me 25 years later to sit down and engage in this conversation that you're about to watch. And I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Well, thank you again for coming here and for sitting down to do this. I really appreciate it. And I was telling Leonardo when he got off the plane that, you know, you were an inspiration for me starting this organization 25 years ago and allowed me to quit my job. And now we have 100 some odd affiliate schools around the world, and so to be sitting here with you 25 years later is awesome. So I appreciate that.
Congrats on that, and was being a great journey for us.
I have a few questions I'd like to ask you about jiu-jitsu and about training, but over this weekend and at the seminar today and yesterday, you've been talking a lot about what your vision is for what your goals are and what your vision is for your federation. And I was wondering if you talked a little bit about that to start off with.
Yes, I mean, the federation has become the central part of my life, because the way I see it is, even though Jiu-Jitsu has growing in popularity and affectionates for the sport and practitioners and competitions all over, this growth doesn't reflect in the need of the community to learn Jiu-Jitsu. That means sometimes you go in an academy which is competition-oriented, and that's going to definitely appeal to the guys who like competition, who like to engage. But that's always a percentage which not relate to competition, and there's a big percentage which doesn't appeal the competition, the entanglement, but they love to know how to position themselves to a better comfortable defense against some weird guy, or a confidence to know how to act if something happened. So I believe self-defense is the core of Jiu-Jitsu, has always been the core of Jiu-Jitsu in my view. And as we move to US, establish ourselves as a good, tough martial arts who really can get advantage in other styles, this was established. The competition started to become more popular, and that competition brought rules of engagement which doesn't translate in effectiveness on real life situations. Sometimes I see black belts fighting such an ugly fight, technical, very precise to get the medal, but not with the objectivity to be the best guy out there. They just playing strategically to make the medal. And that somehow give them the title of champions and etc., but doesn't appeal for me in terms of what this same champion will do if something really happens with him, because their reflexes are completely off in terms of keeping a solid foundation of defense. So based on that, I feel like it's not their fault, because a lot of professors today, they coming from a competition background, they become famous, they open their schools, and they teach what they know. So that's not a problem on that. But is a lack of information there which avoid or which prevent a lot of fragile people, a lot of guys who need self-defense. They don't have that information in the competition environment. So my objective now towards education is to restore self-defense into the schools, is bring that kind of fundamentals program to appeal to average Joes, to appeal for people who don't like competition, to make a much bigger business for the instructors, and also to create the service which, I mean, without that possibility to engage with weaker people, with guys who don't have this pleasure of competition, we don't give our full service. Yeah. Our full service is to fulfill the weakness, the guys who are shy, and just by putting them above the ground and able to look to your eyes and shake your hand with a firm grip, that's already a victory for a lot of the guys who cannot even look to you in the eye. Right. So the idea of bringing education, bringing curriculum, bringing a guidance for every school have a standard of teachings, that's not going to go against competition, but that's going to create a new market which favors the community. And also a good school has to have an average fundamentals program and also a competition program which can be separate, and then everybody's happy.
Right. I've thought for a long time that if you have solid fundamentals of jiu-jitsu that translate into fighting in the cage or fighting in self-defense, that it's not going to develop bad habits for the gi. That as long as what you're doing is self-defense oriented, you will still have people who will be able to go to tournaments and they'll still do well. They don't have to just be specifically for them.
It depends, because the tournaments today, the rules are allowed in so much stalling, so much grip, so much details, which you have to, for example, my son, Kron, he said, "Dad, I don't want to compete in official tournaments anymore. I cannot stand the rules. Yeah. The guys don't want to fight me. They want to stall, they want to hold, and I have to spend my time trying to free myself instead fighting. So I like to fight no rules. I like to fight no submissions only. But I don't like to fight sport jiu-jitsu competitions, because it's just like the guys are super well trained, juice up, and they just want to stall and hold position. So it's no the rules today, they go against what I believe. So in my view, is a must changing also the rules, stopping the stalling. If we stop the stalling in the competitions, it's already a huge change. Because people has to be more dynamic and looking for either escape or control, so it's a different approach. So I really enforce competition. The rules are a little crooked right now.
One of the things that I took from your teaching a long time ago that really made an impact on me was the idea of, and it was actually something that I heard you say when after you were rolling and sitting up against a wall, of taking a part out of the game, whether it's holding mount or escaping mount or guard, whatever it is, and isolating that part and working it with resistance so you get timing, but just that one piece.
Yes.
Instead of just rolling. And that, to me, that made huge sense.
Yeah.
It's been how I've taught since. I think that's a big part of the success of the organization has come from that.
Yes.
And the thing I wonder, well, there's two pieces. One is, if you want to talk a little bit about why that's so important, and then two is, it still seems to be something that very few people do.
Yes, because first is very important because at one point you learn the position, a sweep or a choke or arm bar or whatever in the guard. And by learning that, you get the knowledge. But you have to have time of training in that specific position to develop all the nuances, all the details around that.
Time.
Yes. So if you learn the position and then you, okay, now let's roll, and you pass through the guard so quick and immediately cross side, immediately mounted, immediately escape, so you don't have the time to really mature the ideas and the changes. So I always been doing partial trainings. That means guard. You try to pass, you try to defend. Once you pass, okay, stop, pass again. And so the idea is to repeat and repeat under action, under normal conditions, under resistance, the same position, because and then you become more sophisticated to put your knee in the right position or keep. So I love to be in control of that position, and then immediately goes to the back. Okay, you try to escape from the back, I try to choke you. Soon you escape, back again. So I develop my skills to choke you, to keep you in control, and you develop your skills to escape. So if we spend 10 minutes on this back and forth, your knowledge about that particular position becomes much bigger than just 30 seconds and a 10-minute roll.
Right.
So the idea of, during the class, teaching, drill the positions, and after the drilling, partial training for a long period, like a big neck of the class. And after that, okay, like a free roll. And then you let this free sparring to make people happy in different dimensions, whatever. But it's important, this kind of partial training, which is hard, but it's control in a way, because once you escape from the mount, try again. So you have the idea of, oh, I missed now because my weight. So either by attacking or defending same position, and different guys sometimes, because I like to do partial training one-on-one, or if it's a group class, we'll be the same guard position, but now I'm in your guard, and then I'm in the John's guard, and then Mark guard, and goes like this, only guard. Right. So that's give a nice ability to handle different body shapes and different leverage, and questions will happen and problems. So that's give a sophisticated way to develop that kind of growth in that particular piece. And then when you add, it's like a perfect puzzle.
Yeah, that's always made absolute sense to me. So my follow-up question is, why is it, my experience has been, I have a lot of respect for all kinds of different jiu-jitsu instructors, but that approach still seems to be kind of rare. What I see is the technique and then roll. Technique and then roll.
Yes, because, I mean, in a regular seminar, at least 20 black belts, and sometimes I get a black belt to escape from a UPA, and they don't know quite perfectly. They tough. They can handle positions. They can survive. They can eventually escape. But it's about like 20%, 30% technique and a lot of heart, a lot of experience, a lot of toughness. So what I feel like is a lot of the people who today is in charge of teaching, they coming from a background, they just developed by competing, training. So in their mind, the learning is coming from this kind of crazy action and instead details. When I come into a seminar, I like to give small details for experienced guys. And they're gonna say, wow, I never know about that. So for me, it's always about details. It's all about sophistication on the application of the moves. For other guys, it's all about agility, training, and capacity to be competitive and be sharp. That's why they don't put too much attention on details on partial trainings, because they just don't have that school. It grows so much. and guys from, oh, I'm a student of a student of a student of somebody. So this guy will come in and play a much tougher game than the supposed to be from the, if he gets closer to the source, you know?
Right.
There's a lot of techniques that are unusual, is being unused now.
Right. So it's not used that widely because they just don't know any better.
Yes, and I feel like through the federation, giving guidance, giving curriculum, giving ways to teach, will facilitate for the next growth of jiu-jitsu, because we have to standard. I mean, some black belts, they are black belts because they win tournaments, but they don't know half of the curriculum.
Right.
In judo, in order for you to get a black belt, you have to know a curriculum. You have to know the Shionage, the Ushimata, this, how. So they have a bunch of things they have to know in order. So we don't have this in jiu-jitsu, and you should have. You should have the whole self-defense program. You have to know the defense of freestyle fighting, like against punches and kicks. You have to have a condition to be able to inform your students in a more complete way.
When I think about really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's some sort of ideal, platonic ideal of what I'm thinking about is its best. I'm thinking about you. When you think about really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu being practiced by somebody, who do you think about?
You mean in the modern times?
Modern times.
I like to see Kron fighting. He's very progressive. He's capitalizing all the times in the movements and bringing the, because it's an interesting part of jiu-jitsu, which if you see two guys fighting and both of them are comfortable, even though it's a position strap, something wrong. In real fight, when I'm comfortable, you're supposed to be uncomfortable. And you're looking for your comfortable, and then I'm uncomfortable. So it's a deal of whoever is on control, bringing pressure, bringing discomfort, trying to go for the kill. So that kind of situation is translates in effectiveness. You know, you train with the guy, he's escalating a process to submit you. You can see you go behind, you're going to get tighter, and eventually you tap, you say, wow, man, that's too tough. Because the guy is really coming to win. When the guy don't come in to win, he waits for you to make advantage or a point. So it becomes a lighter version of jiu-jitsu. Becomes something more strategic to win the medal, not to really win you. So it's more like using the tools I can use to save my energy, to capitalize on a little advantage or something. So that's diminished the bullseye, the objectivity, the submission, and the pressure the fighter is supposed to give.
So when you're looking at someone, you say that person, so for example, sometimes I'll see it, you're at Worlds, they're watching the matches.
Yeah, the guys, very few guys I'm excited about. Like Kron, I like to see him fight anytime. Buchecha is a good guy to see it because he's progressive. Right. Have some other guys are good, like, you know, some you see in the crowd, like some guys, some good fights you say, wow, because the guy just pushed for, you know. But you see a lot of the champions, they already have established a game plan which has nothing to do with progressive offense. It has to be with holding, stalling, adjusting, and make the guy feel like trap, and wherever he try to go, he capitalized, get a little advantage, and then set. So it's more strategic than actually pressure. And I have no, it doesn't appeal for me, that kind of game.
If you're watching two black belts roll, and you come to the conclusion that one of them is technical, aside from pressure, what else are you looking at? Like if someone was able to look through the eyes of Rickson to see if this person has good jiu-jitsu or doesn't have good jiu-jitsu, what qualities or what movements are you looking to see?
I mean, I'm looking for the way he used the body weight and the way he control, he establish. It's like animals. He's like, if I see my two dogs fighting, I see the guys on winning. They always complete control, and as he control, he find the place to bite. So the good aggressive player is the one who controls and keep putting pressure to get close to the submission. When he's just control, he's lack of pressure. He's holding, but the pressure, I mean, is not about position. It's about, oh my God, if I stay here, I'm gonna get killed, so I have to go somewhere else. And then that's pressure. You're not comfortable to stay. So it's hard to find guys who keep pressure all the time, you know, and that is crucial in terms of analyzing. Whoever is keeping, because this kind of pressure, either the guy gonna quit, or he's gonna go into the corners. I mean, without that kind of idea of controlling and submitting, becomes weak. It's not about the ability of the guy to move.
You're looking for control, advancing the position.
Yes.
Pressure on. Okay.
Yes.
So I've been black belts for 15, 16 years, 16 years. And I only now, I know it sounds cliche to people, and I try not to say it too often because it can almost be demoralizing for people who just started jiu-jitsu, but it is true. Like the last couple of years, I feel like I've learned more about jiu-jitsu than I did the previous 23 years or 25 years. And yet, by the time you get to that point, you know, I'm 48, and most of my generation, and we're going into our 50s. And so what advice would you have for us and for the older players who we feel like we're learning more about jiu-jitsu as our body is able to do less jiu-jitsu? And it's kind of, there's an irony to it, but how do we make sure we keep going in the right way?
I mean, that's just pretty much life. You know, sometimes, I mean, here's a joke in Brazil. He said, oh, if I was young and new, now I'm old and I couldn't do. So it's a compensation. When you're young, you have all the energy, but you don't know. Yeah. As you become mature, you know better, but you're not young anymore.
Right.
So, but in Jiu-Jitsu, I think what you feel good about it is now you don't put yourself as a competitor anymore.
Right.
And as you start to see how much you can contribute with the society, with the community, how much you can input to change a little kid's life or to change a personality of somebody who is insecure. And so we become preachers, not exactly warriors. Yeah. I feel like I'm just motivated today as always been, but at one point I was just thinking about competing and who's my next opponent. Now I cannot even think about compete. But I still see how I can modify it to the better somebody who's approached me, how I can really make his life change to better. And Jiu-Jitsu transcends competition, you know, because the concepts within martial arts, like patience. Today you have more patience than you always been. Resilience. Today you're more resilient, you're more capable to adapt than ever. So those things, even though physically you're not the same like myself, I feel like I'm on top of my sanity as my martial arts sanity. Yeah. Because I'm patient to the masks, I have the killer instinct, my sharpness, my timing, my vision, my capacity to overcome obstacles is bigger than ever. Because big part of martial arts is in your mind, how you believe. Nobody can assure you're going to kick people's ass. But if you believe you have a chance, at least you stand tall and say, okay, you give me a chance. I mean, it's fact. I don't know how big the guy is. But in one chance, if I have the chance to get the choke, I'm winning. I don't care how big the guy is. The problem is to get the choke. Right. But if I get it, so I have this in my mind. So I have always visualizing my opportunities, my sharpness in terms of my mindset is the best I can be, you know? And that's pretty much what we all should looking for, is have a highest expectation of how your mindset, accepting pressure, accepting, I mean, you lost everything. If you have the right mindset, you say, okay, let's start again. Bah, nothing is, oh my God, panicking and desperate. It's for weak people. If you master in yourself, you're able to control emotions, you'll be able to do whatever you have to do to excel. So even though it's changing, you're getting better.
That brings me to one of the last questions I wanted to ask you about. I keep, I've heard you talk about it forever, and I keep coming back to it in my own training, the concept of connection that you always talk about.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much what I felt like the whole seminar was about.
Yes.
It was all about connection.
Yes.
Every single piece that you showed was about connection.
Yes, it's using the whole body to get an effect, yes.
And so initially what I was going to ask you was, what is the best, because I feel like it took me decades to figure that out, like a long time, even though I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time.
Yeah.
I only recently feel like I'm starting to understand that. My initial question was if there's a faster way or a better way that you found to help teach people that, but after watching you teach a seminar today, I'm wondering if there's anything where you're not teaching connections.
Because connection is the way you're maximizing your body towards any situation. If you want to throw, you want to be well connected. If you want to hold, so it's not individual holding with the arm. I have to get an angle to hold with my body. So somehow being connected translates in your deep understanding of how your structure can work to the max to help you. You know, sometimes a big guy like you can compensate with strength, and that sometimes works, most of the time. But a weaker guy, if he don't feel exactly like you remember in the girl who's in the beginning block, it's completely changed the understanding of defending with no connection and defending with the leverage she needs. So that's the kind of understanding has to be in every position.
Not all jiu-jitsu instructors teach that or talk about it. Most don't teach that or talk about it. Where did that come from?
Man, I've been on the spot for all my life. Since 6 years old, I was competing in a 7 years old bracket. And for the first time, for my first competition, I lost. And my dad very wisely told me, so if you win, I give you a gift. If you lose, I give you 2 gifts. So at the time, I never understood why he tried to say with that. But the back message on that is, I don't care, I'm not be upset. I'm not going to judge you if you lose. So I never felt from my dad pressure, I have to win. Or I never felt from my dad be disappointed because I did not win. It was about me. So he was enforcing, okay, you go, whatever happened, I'm with you. That's what he wants to say behind. And my first competition I lost because 1 year difference was big difference at the time. So, and after that, after 7 years old, I straight win up to 18 years old, I got my black belt. And then after the black belt, straight wins always. But because I like compete, because I'm involved, I put myself on the edge. I become, after 18 years old, for example, I was responsible to represent the family. If something happens, some Zulu guy show up, I have to go there and fight in my heart. I could not let nobody else go. No, let me go, I want to go. And that is a big motivation for me to be the best I can be. Together with that, I always teach. And my dad told me very, very wisely a long time ago, he said, you want to be a good teacher, you don't want to teach what you want to the student. You have to analyze the student and see what he needs to learn. So that's make me not a psychiatrist, but pretty much getting into what you have in your mind. If you're too tense, if you're lazy, if you need to wake up, if you need to calm down, if you need to breathe. And then I start to see emotionally, technically, how I can help you. And sometimes I get a weak guy who the first time I let him escape, great, try again. As I start to creating, because in my mind, I don't want to just make him repeat like a parrot. So repeating things without no effect. As he starts to understand, I start to put in more pressure because I want to make him feel like he can handle real situations. And as I start to escalate pressure, in my side, I said, now he cannot escape anymore. Okay, so eventually I got a bigger guy, say, grab me here, see how I feel. So I start to experimenting positions and angles to bring to me the confidence I need to teach. So more I teach weaker guys, more I have to learn sophisticated details. Because if I was just measuring by myself, I'm not a skinny, I'm not the strongest, but I'm not the weakest. So I always can put something from my own and improvise and make it up, like every other fighter does. Right. For me, it was more about teaching the weak one to do what I do. So I have to be, no, that's not working, the hoop is not, so try to angle a little. So, and then I start to develop through my years, the angles and the leverage to be connected fully, not partially. To the point And my vest, before my dad passed away, like times we go to visit him in the ranch, and I show him some positions, and he said, can I use your positions now? And I said, Dad, this is more you than me, man. I'm just trying to work here in the positions, but I mean, this is all you, all your theory, so I'm very, very excited to bring those details I've been developing all my life to the crowd, because a lot of people don't see it. And like we talked today, is invisible.
Yes.
So honoring my dad's image, I try to be sophisticated to teach my students.
I guess my last question would be, what advice would you have for how we can take that and help people the most?
I think just keep doing what we do, because, Jiu-Jitsu is such a profound art, such a complete, nothing can be more intimate, nothing can recruit more emotions than, panicking, claustrophobic, anger, disappointment, fear, anxiety. So all this, you deal in daily basis in a friendly environment. And as you become more comfortable to deal with your fears, with your you transfer this for life. And you become a better person to deal with your boss, with your employee, with your girlfriend, whatever. So it's a very much like a religion. It's something we do to make better people and become more like a sequence of the good, because martial arts is something can be violent, but we do for defense. We do to empower people who otherwise they have no power. So my father is an example of that. He's a 135-pound guy fighting anyone, fearless. How good if we see all the 135-pound guys here around the fearless and look into your eye. So that's the position everyone wants to be.
Right.
And the weak ones, they cannot be without Jiu-Jitsu. So that's why we are doing this.
It's an honor. Thank you.
My pleasure.
This is SBG, and you will be okay.